Even now, watching this video, seeing myself in the garden and sharing that imagery with the world, you know, it feels cathartic. But it's also me wearing that plant on my being. It's my attempt to do what I can to destigmatize what has hurt us, criminalized us, demonized us, persecuted us. You know, I grew up at a time in the 80s in Brooklyn when things changed. We saw a catalytic shift when the scourge that was crack came into our neighborhoods and decimated our communities. And those behaviors, whether you were selling or whether you were using, all of the behaviors were criminalized. One left turn here, one right turn here leads me to the supper club where there's a group who's performing on stage named the Fugees. And I see them for the first time, and I believe it was '94. And I meet Lauryn Hill that night, and we become very, very close friends. When the Fugees got the opportunity to work on their second album, Lauryn extended that invitation. From there, I went on to release my solo album. Some great words were written about it, but it didn't do the numbers that we thought it would do, especially in the wake of selling millions and millions and millions of records with the Fugees and Wyclef and the refugee camp and etc. It was my first failure. It was 1996, and I hadn't tasted defeat up until that point. Last ray of hope was filing for clemency. We began that process in 2005, and it was not until 2008 that I received an answer to that petition, and it was unlikely, but it was a favorable answer, and I had my sentence commuted, and I came home on December the 22nd, 2008. Did not have the luxury to forget about that experience. My art immediately coincided with my activism, and anything that I lived, valued, validated became part of that creative process, rather than sort of kind of compartmentalizing it and saying, well, we'll forget and we'll move on. I just didn't have that opportunity. I have another friend who told me a couple of months ago, he's a white guy, and he told me, he said as a kid, he said, yeah, I smoked weed all the time. And I never felt threatened for my freedom. I never felt like somebody would lock me up for it. And I thought in that moment, I didn't smoke herb all the time, but whenever I did, I was often terrified. I wasn't privy to the so-called healing powers of it until I could remove as much as I could from myself the trauma that came with the criminalization of having any sort of relationship with this plant. Not only did I experience that as a young man, when I also went in and through federal prison, I met men who were impacted directly by cannabis laws. You know, what I saw is not a phenomenon of the past. What I saw continues.
The belly of the beast is starving. and it's talking to police for bargains.
The video for Ready on the One begins and ends with me in my garden. I'm surrounded by cannabis. I am proximate to it, as is my family. I had a conversation with the director. This was yesterday or the day before, and Ralph said, you know, John, I'm so close to it that it was almost lost on me that here you are in your garden surrounded by these plants. And I almost forgot about your lived experience, your history. Like, this could not have been a reality for you 15 years ago. What we're witnessing en masse is still a pervasive money grab that has higher barriers of entry for communities of color, but for people who have been impacted greater by these laws. And now we're seeing proactive measures to keep them and us out. You can bet your bottom dollar that I will do what I can to make sure that that industry is as equitable as it's promised. And so me standing in that garden is also a very, very, very clear signal to anyone in that industry. I'm not the only gardener. I'm not the only gardener out here.